Yeah. So the next is authorization. Once a subject is authenticated, access must be authorized. The process of authorization ensures that the requested activity or access to an object is possible given the rights and privileges assigned to the authenticated identity. In most cases, the system evaluates an access control matrix that compares the subject, the object, and the intended activity. If the specific action is allowed, the subject is authorized. If the specific action is not allowed, the subject is not authorized. Keep in mind that just because the subject has been identified and authenticated does not mean they have been authorized to perform any function or access all resources within the controlled environment. It is possible for a subject to be logged onto a network that is identified and authenticated, but to be blocked from accessing a file or printing to a printer, that is by not being authorized to perform that activity. Most network users are authorized to perform only a limited number of activities in a specific collection of resources. Identification and authentication are all or nothing aspects of access control. Authorization has a wide range of variations between all or nothing for each subject within the environment. A user may be able to read a file but not delete it, print a document but not alter the print queue, or log onto a system but not access any resources. Authorization is usually defined using one of the concepts of access control, such as discretionary access control, mandatory access control, or role based access control. The AAA services. You may have heard of the concept of AAA services. The three A's in this acronym refer to authentication, authorization, accounting, or sometimes auditing. However, what it is not as clear is that although there are three letters in the acronym, it actually refers to five elements: identification, authentication, authorization, auditing, and accounting. Thus, the first and the third last actually represent two concepts instead of just one. These five elements represent the following processes of security: identification, claiming an identity when attempting to access a secured area or system; authentication, proving that you are that identity; authorization, defining that allows and denials of resource and object access for a specific identity; auditing, recording a log of the events and activities related to the system and subjects; accounting, reviewing log files or check for compliance and violation in order to build subjects accountable for their actions. Although AAA is then referenced in relation to authentication systems, it is in fact a foundational concept of all forms of security, as without any one of these five elements, a security mechanism could be incomplete. Auditing or monitoring is a programmatic means by which a subject's actions are tracked and recorded for the purpose of holding the subject accountable for their actions while authenticated on a system. It is also the process by which unauthorized or abnormal activities are detected on the system. Auditing is recording activities of subject and its objects, as well as recording the activities of core system functions that maintain the operating environment and the security mechanism. The audit trails created by recording system events to logs can be used to evaluate the health and performance of a system. System crashes may include faulty programs, corrupt drivers, or intrusion attempts. The event logs leading up to a crash can often be used to discover the reason a system failed. Log files provide an audit trail for recreating the history of an event, intrusion, or system failure. Auditing is needed to detect malicious actions by subjects, attempted intrusions, and system failures, and to reconstruct events, provide evidence for prosecution, and produce problem reports and analysis. Auditing is usually a native feature of operating system and most applications and services. Thus, configuring the system to record information about specific types of events is fairly straightforward. Accountability and organization security policy can be properly enforced only if accountability is maintained. In other words, you can maintain security only if subjects are held accountable for their actions. Effective accountability relies on the capability to prove a subject's identity and track their activities. Accountability is established by linking a human to the actions of an online identity through the security services and mechanisms of auditing, authorization, authentication, and identification. Thus, human accountability is ultimately dependent on the strength of the authentication process. Without a strong authentication process, there is some doubt that the human associated with a specific user account was the actual entity controlling that user account when the undesired action took place. To have viable accountability, you must be able to support your security in a court of law. If you are unable to legally support your security efforts, then you will be unlikely to be able to hold a human accountable for actions linked to a user account. With only a password or authentication, there is a significant room for doubt. Passwords are the least secure form of authentication, with dozens of different methods available to compromise them. However, with the use of multi-factor authentication such as password, smart card and fingerprint scanners combination, there is very little possibility that any of the human would have compromised the authentic process to in order to impersonate the human responsible for the user account.